Have you ever noticed how the harder you try to avoid pain, escape suffering, or push through difficult emotions, the more elusive progress becomes? There's a reason for this, and once you see it, everything shifts. Let me show you what I mean. Most people approach pain like it's a mistake, an obstacle to overcome, or evidence that something has gone terribly wrong in their lives. They exhaust themselves trying to eliminate discomfort, numb difficult feelings, or force their way past emotional challenges. But what if I told you that this very resistance to pain is what keeps you stuck, while the people who make the most meaningful progress have learned to work with their pain in a completely different way? The people who effortlessly transform their deepest struggles into their greatest strengths know something that the rest of us are missing. It's not what you think, and it's definitely not what they teach in most self-help approaches or therapy models. Stay with me, because this understanding will transform not just how you relate to pain, but how you approach growth, meaning, and your capacity to create something beautiful from even the most difficult experiences. What I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating, and finally transformative. Because here's what most people miss. Pain isn't the enemy of progress. It's often the catalyst that makes real transformation possible. When you understand how to work with pain skillfully rather than against it, your most difficult experiences become the very fuel that powers your most meaningful growth. The resistance. Have you noticed how using pain for progress feels like trying to harness lightning during a storm? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on escaping pain rather than understanding what it might be trying to teach us or how it might serve our development. Picture Jennifer, a 34-year-old marketing director who had spent the last 3 years trying to get over the devastating end of her 10-year marriage. She tried therapy, medication, meditation retreats, travel, dating, career changes, and countless self-help approaches designed to help her heal and move forward. Everyone told her she needed to process her grief, let go of the past, and choose happiness. But despite all her efforts to heal, recover, and find closure, Jennifer felt stuck in a cycle of pain that seemed to return whenever she thought she'd finally overcome it. The grief, anger, and sense of failure would resurface during quiet moments, triggered by memories or activated by new relationship attempts. She felt like she was failing at healing, disappointing the people who wanted to see her move on, and somehow fundamentally broken because she couldn't seem to get past her pain. Sound familiar? Jennifer represents millions of us caught in what I call the pain resistance trap. We've been taught that emotional pain is something to overcome, work through, or transcend, rather than something that might contain valuable information, energy, or potential for growth. We approach our most difficult experiences like problems to be solved, rather than understanding that pain often signals areas where transformation wants to happen. What I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating, and finally transformative. Because here's what most people miss. Pain isn't the enemy of progress. It's often the catalyst that makes real transformation possible. When you understand how to work with pain skillfully rather than against it, your most difficult experiences become the very fuel that powers your most meaningful growth. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When we resist pain, avoid difficult emotions, or try to rush through challenging experiences, we miss the intelligence that pain contains about what matters to us, where we need to grow, and what wants to emerge through our struggles. Pain becomes an enemy to fight rather than a teacher to learn from, or energy to be channeled constructively. Jennifer was exhausting herself trying to eliminate pain rather than learning to work with it skillfully. She was treating her grief like a malfunction rather than a natural response to loss that contained information about her capacity for love, her values around relationship, and her potential for deeper emotional intelligence and resilience. What Jennifer didn't understand, what most of us miss, is that pain often marks the places where our greatest growth potential lies. The experiences that hurt us most deeply are frequently connected to what matters most to us. The struggles that seem most overwhelming often reveal strength and capabilities we didn't know we possessed. Think of how a muscle develops strength. The resistance, discomfort, and micro tears that occur during exercise aren't obstacles to strength development. They're the very mechanism through which strength grows. Without appropriate challenge and discomfort, muscles remain weak and underdeveloped. But when stress is applied skillfully and followed by proper recovery, the muscle emerges stronger than before. Your emotional and psychological development work similarly. The experiences that challenge you, stretch your capacity, and push you beyond your comfort zone often create the conditions for growth that wouldn't be possible through comfort and ease alone. This doesn't mean seeking out pain or glorifying suffering. It means learning to work skillfully with the challenges that naturally arise in life. Most people exhaust themselves trying to return to who they were before difficult experiences, rather than understanding that pain often signals that growth wants to happen. They fight to restore their previous comfort level instead of allowing challenging experiences to expand their capacity, deepen their wisdom, or strengthen their resilience. The real trap isn't the pain itself. It's our relationship to pain that treats discomfort as evidence of failure rather than as information about areas where development wants to occur. When you understand how to work with pain constructively rather than against it, your most difficult experiences become sources of strength, wisdom, and authentic power rather than obstacles to overcome. You might be thinking, but pain hurts. How can something that feels so awful be good for me? Isn't the goal to be happy and comfortable? That's exactly the right question, because what I'm about to share isn't about glorifying suffering or avoiding legitimate healing. It's about understanding how to relate to inevitable life challenges in a way that generates growth, meaning, and resilience rather than leaving you stuck in victimhood or resistance. The people who successfully use pain as fuel for progress understand something that changes everything about how transformation actually works. They know that the goal isn't eliminating discomfort, it's developing the capacity to move through challenges with grace, extract wisdom from difficulty, and allow their struggles to strengthen rather than diminish their capacity for meaning, contribution, and authentic power. You might be thinking, but pain hurts. How can something that feels so awful be good for me? Isn't the goal to be happy and comfortable? That's exactly the right question, because what I'm about to share isn't about glorifying suffering or avoiding legitimate healing. It's about understanding how to relate to inevitable life challenges in a way that generates growth, meaning, and resilience rather than leaving you stuck in victimhood or resistance. The people who successfully use pain as fuel for progress understand something that changes everything about how transformation actually works. They know that the goal isn't eliminating discomfort, it's developing the capacity to move through challenges with grace, extract wisdom from difficulty, and allow their struggles to strengthen rather than diminish their capacity for meaning, contribution, and authentic power. Jennifer's story doesn't end with her trapped in perpetual grief, but her transformation didn't happen through finally getting over her divorce. It happened through learning to work with her pain as information about her values, strength, and potential rather than as evidence of her failure to heal properly. When she stopped fighting her grief and started listening to what it revealed about her capacity for love, her standards for relationship, and her resilience in facing life changes, everything shifted. The story. Let me tell you about Marcus, a 41-year-old construction worker who lost his right arm in an industrial accident. For the first year after the accident, Marcus was consumed by rage, grief, and despair. He'd lost not just his physical capacity, but his identity as someone who worked with his hands, his sense of independence, and his confidence about his future. Every day felt like evidence of everything that had been taken from him. Marcus tried the conventional approaches to recovery and adjustment: physical therapy to learn to function with one arm, counseling to process his trauma and grief, vocational training to develop new job skills that didn't require two hands. Everyone encouraged him to accept his new reality, focus on what he still had, and find ways to adapt and move forward. But despite these well-meaning efforts, Marcus felt angry, hopeless, and diminished. The accident had happened to him, and everyone seemed to want him to make peace with this terrible thing that had derailed his life. He felt like he was supposed to become some kind of inspirational figure who was grateful for the lessons learned through adversity, but mostly he just felt robbed and furious. Then something shifted during a particularly dark period when Marcus was isolating himself from friends and family who were trying to help him stay positive. Alone in his apartment, consumed by rage about his circumstances, Marcus realized that his anger contained enormous energy. Instead of trying to calm down or think positively, he became curious about what this powerful emotion might reveal about what mattered to him. His anger wasn't just about losing his arm, it was about losing his sense of capability, his identity as someone who could handle anything, his role as the person others relied on for physical tasks. But beneath the rage, Marcus discovered something unexpected. His fury revealed how much he valued contribution, competence, and making a meaningful difference in the world. Instead of trying to eliminate his anger or accept his limitations, Marcus began asking different questions. How could he channel this powerful energy constructively? What did his intense reaction reveal about his deepest values and desires? What kind of contribution could emerge from someone who understood struggle, limitation, and the process of rebuilding capability from scratch? Marcus began volunteering at a rehabilitation center, not as someone who had overcome his disability, but as someone who understood the rage, grief, and disorientation that follows life-altering injury. His ability to sit with others' anger without trying to fix it or rush them towards acceptance became extraordinarily valuable to people going through similar experiences. As Marcus learned to work with his emotional intensity rather than against it, he discovered capabilities he'd never developed when life was comfortable and predictable. His empathy deepened, his communication skills expanded, and his capacity to remain present during difficult conversations grew stronger than it had ever been before his accident. Eventually, Marcus became a peer counselor and advocate for people with acquired disabilities. His work wasn't about inspiring others to overcome their challenges, but about helping them discover their own ways of channeling the energy of their struggles into meaningful contribution and personal development. The profound transformation in Marcus's story wasn't about accepting his limitations or finding silver linings in tragedy. It was about learning to work with the energy of his pain, the rage, grief, and disorientation as information about his values and potential rather than as obstacles to overcome. His most difficult experience became the foundation for capabilities and contributions he never would have developed through comfort and ease. Marcus discovered that his accident hadn't taken away his capacity for meaningful work, it had revealed different forms of contribution that drew on strengths he'd never needed to develop before. His physical limitation became the catalyst for emotional and interpersonal capabilities that enabled him to make a difference in ways that weren't possible when his identity was based solely on physical competence. This story illustrates something crucial about how pain can serve progress. The goal isn't transforming suffering into happiness or finding reasons to be grateful for terrible experiences. It's learning to work with the energy that pain contains, the intensity, focus, and clarity that often emerge from struggle in service of growth, contribution, and meaning-making that honors both the reality of loss and the potential for development. The understanding. Here's what transforms everything about using pain as fuel for progress. Pain isn't a malfunction of life that needs to be eliminated. It's often life's way of signaling where growth, change, or new development wants to happen. When you learn to work with pain as information and energy rather than as an obstacle to overcome, your most difficult experiences become catalysts for capabilities and contributions you never would have developed through comfort alone. Most people exhaust themselves trying to eliminate pain, return to their previous comfort level, or heal from difficult experiences as quickly as possible. But this approach treats pain like a mistake, rather than understanding that struggle often contains intelligence about what matters most to you, where you need to develop new capacities, and what kind of growth is trying to emerge through your challenges. While conventional wisdom suggests that the goal is minimizing discomfort and maximizing happiness, master practitioners understand that sustainable fulfillment often emerges from learning to work skillfully with life's inevitable challenges, rather than trying to avoid or quickly overcome them. Pain becomes a teacher, informant, and source of energy rather than an enemy to defeat. Think of how carbon becomes diamond under pressure. The intense heat and compression that would destroy most materials actually transforms carbon into one of the hardest, most valuable substances on Earth. The pressure isn't the enemy of the diamond, it's the very condition that makes diamond possible. Without the intense challenge, carbon remains soft and ordinary. Your personal development works similarly. The experiences that feel most challenging, uncomfortable, or overwhelming often create the conditions for growth that wouldn't be possible through ease and comfort alone. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering or believing that pain is inherently good. It means learning to recognize when difficult experiences contain potential for development and growth. The key insight is that pain often signals areas where expansion wants to happen. Physical pain indicates areas that need attention, healing, or strengthening. Emotional pain frequently points towards values that matter deeply to you, relationships that need attention, or aspects of yourself that want to develop more fully. When you resist pain or try to eliminate it immediately, you often miss the intelligence it contains about what needs attention in your life. But when you learn to listen to pain without being overwhelmed by it, you often discover information about direction, values, and potential that wasn't available during comfortable periods. This is why people who use pain constructively often report that their most difficult experiences became turning points that led to their most meaningful growth, strongest relationships, and most authentic contributions. They didn't enjoy the suffering, but they learned to extract value from challenges that transformed their capacity and depth in profound ways. The practical approach involves learning to distinguish between pain that contains growth potential and pain that's purely destructive. Constructive pain usually connects to your values, reveals strength you didn't know you had, or pushes you toward development that serves both your growth and your capacity to contribute. Destructive pain tends to diminish your capacity, isolate you from connection, or keep you stuck in victimhood without generating growth. Working with pain as fuel means developing the capacity to remain present with difficult experiences long enough to understand what they might be trying to teach or where they might be pointing you toward growth. This isn't about prolonging suffering or avoiding appropriate healing. It's about approaching challenges with curiosity rather than pure resistance. The energy that gets mobilized during painful experiences, the intensity, focus, and heightened awareness can be channeled toward growth, learning, and contribution when you understand how to work with it skillfully. The same emotional energy that feels overwhelming when you're fighting against it can become powerful fuel for meaningful action when you learn to direct it constructively. Here's what most people miss. The goal isn't eliminating pain or returning to your previous comfort level. The goal is allowing challenges to expand your capacity, deepen your wisdom, and strengthen your ability to handle whatever life presents while maintaining your capacity for meaning, connection, and contribution. This understanding completely transforms your relationship to adversity. Instead of seeing difficult experiences as obstacles to your goals or evidence that something has gone wrong, you begin to recognize them as opportunities for development that often lead to capabilities and contributions you never would have discovered through comfort alone. The people who successfully use pain as fuel don't become pain seekers or suffering enthusiasts. They develop the wisdom to extract value from inevitable challenges while taking appropriate action to address problems and care for their well-being. They understand that resistance to growth often causes more suffering than the growth process itself. When you learn to work with pain this way, your relationship to life's challenges transforms completely. Difficulties become less overwhelming because you're not fighting against them and trying to make them disappear immediately. Instead, you're working with them as sources of information and energy that often lead to growth you couldn't achieve through easier paths. The methods. Now that you understand the principle, let's explore how to practically transform pain into fuel for meaningful progress. This isn't about glorifying suffering or avoiding legitimate healing. It's about developing specific capabilities that allow you to extract value from inevitable life challenges. Recognition practices. The foundation of using pain constructively is learning to recognize when difficult experiences contain potential for growth versus when they're purely destructive. Not all pain serves development, and learning to distinguish between constructive and destructive suffering is essential for working with challenges skillfully. Constructive pain usually connects to your deepest values and reveals areas where growth wants to happen. It often feels intense but also meaningful, like it's connected to something important even when it's uncomfortable. This type of pain frequently pushes you toward capabilities you didn't know you possessed or contributions you hadn't considered possible. Destructive pain tends to diminish your capacity, isolate you from connection, or trap you in cycles of victimhood without generating growth or learning. It often feels pointless, purely negative, and disconnected from any larger meaning or development potential. This type of suffering benefits from intervention, healing, or removal rather than exploration. Begin developing your recognition capacity by paying attention to how different types of challenging experiences affect your energy and outlook over time. Notice which difficulties leave you feeling depleted and hopeless versus which ones feel challenging but somehow meaningful or growth-promoting. When facing painful experiences, ask yourself reflective questions. What does this struggle reveal about what matters most to me? What strengths am I being called to develop? What capabilities might emerge from learning to handle this challenge skillfully? How might working through this difficulty serve not just my growth, but my capacity to help others? Also notice the difference between pain that connects you more deeply to your values and humanity versus pain that separates you from meaning and connection. Growth-promoting pain often increases your empathy, wisdom, and capacity for contribution even while it's uncomfortable. Destructive pain typically diminishes these qualities. Practice sitting with difficult emotions long enough to understand what information they might contain before immediately trying to eliminate or escape them. This doesn't mean wallowing in suffering or avoiding appropriate action. It means pausing to listen before reacting automatically. The recognition process takes time to develop because it requires learning to tolerate discomfort long enough to understand what it might be trying to teach. Most people react so quickly to pain that they miss any potential wisdom or growth opportunity it might contain. Energy channeling. Once you can recognize when pain contains growth potential, the next skill involves learning to channel the emotional energy that gets mobilized during difficult experiences toward constructive action rather than destructive patterns. Pain often generates enormous emotional energy, intensity, focus, heightened awareness, and motivation for change. This energy can be channeled toward growth, learning, and meaningful action, or it can be wasted through resistance, numbing, or destructive behaviors. Learning to direct painful energy constructively is often what transforms suffering into strength. When experiencing intense emotions during challenging periods, instead of trying to immediately calm down or eliminate the feelings, get curious about how this energy might be directed towards something meaningful. What action does this intensity want to fuel? What change is this emotional energy trying to motivate? Physical movement often helps channel emotional energy constructively. Instead of trying to think your way through intense feelings, engage in physical activity that allows the energy to move through your body while you consider what constructive action might serve your situation. Creative expression frequently provides excellent channels for transforming emotional energy. Writing, art, music, or other creative outlets allow you to process and transform difficult experiences while potentially creating something valuable from your struggle. Service to others often becomes a natural channel for pain-generated energy. The empathy and understanding that develop through their own struggles often translate into capacity to help others facing similar challenges. Your pain becomes fuel for contribution rather than just personal healing. Skill development can also serve as a constructive channel. The motivation and focus that emerge from challenging experiences often provide energy for learning new capabilities, developing existing talents, or building competencies that serve both personal growth and future contribution. The key is learning to work with emotional intensity as energy to be directed rather than as a problem to be solved. When you fight against intense emotions, you waste the energy they contain. When you learn to channel that energy constructively, it becomes fuel for meaningful action and development. Meaning construction. The third method involves learning to construct meaning from difficult experiences in ways that serve your growth and contribution rather than leaving you stuck in victimhood or bitterness. This isn't about finding silver linings or pretending that bad things are actually good. It's about discovering how challenges can contribute to your development and capacity to serve. Meaning construction begins with asking different questions about your painful experiences. Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" or "How can I get back to how things were before?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience? How might this challenge develop capabilities I need? What contribution might emerge from understanding this type of struggle?" Look for the capabilities that difficult experiences are calling you to develop. Challenges often reveal areas where you need to grow stronger, more resilient, more skilled, or more wise. Instead of seeing these gaps as evidence of your inadequacy, recognize them as opportunities for development that might not have been apparent during comfortable periods. Consider how your struggles might increase your capacity to help others facing similar challenges. The understanding, empathy, and practical wisdom that develop through your own difficulties often become valuable resources for supporting others. Your pain transforms from purely personal suffering into preparation for meaningful contribution. Meaning construction. The third method involves learning to construct meaning from difficult experiences in ways that serve your growth and contribution rather than leaving you stuck in victimhood or bitterness. This isn't about finding silver linings or pretending that bad things are actually good. It's about discovering how challenges can contribute to your development and capacity to serve. Meaning construction begins with asking different questions about your painful experiences. Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" or "How can I get back to how things were before?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience? How might this challenge develop capabilities I need? What contribution might emerge from understanding this type of struggle?" Look for the capabilities that difficult experiences are calling you to develop. Challenges often reveal areas where you need to grow stronger, more resilient, more skilled, or more wise. Instead of seeing these gaps as evidence of your inadequacy, recognize them as opportunities for development that might not have been apparent during comfortable periods. Consider how your struggles might increase your capacity to help others facing similar challenges. The understanding, empathy, and practical wisdom that develop through your own difficulties often become valuable resources for supporting others. Your pain transforms from purely personal suffering into preparation for meaningful contribution. Examine what your most intense reactions reveal about your deepest values. The experiences that hurt most are often connected to what matters most to you. Understanding this connection can clarify your priorities and help you make choices that honor your authentic values rather than external expectations. Notice what strengths emerge as you learn to handle challenging experiences skillfully. You often discover capabilities you didn't know you possessed when life forces you to develop new ways of coping, problem-solving, or maintaining your center during difficulty. This meaning construction process isn't about convincing yourself that painful experiences are wonderful or that everything happens for a reason. It's about recognizing how challenges can contribute to your development and capacity when you choose to work with them constructively rather than just trying to overcome them quickly. Integration practices. The fourth method involves integrating insights and capabilities that emerge from painful experiences into your ongoing life rather than treating them as separate healing work that's disconnected from your regular activities and relationships. True transformation happens when the wisdom and strength that develop through difficult experiences become natural parts of how you navigate all areas of life. This integration often requires conscious practice because it's easy to compartmentalize growth that happens during challenging periods rather than allowing it to enhance your general approach to living. Begin integrating pain-derived insights by identifying specific capabilities that have emerged through your struggles. Perhaps you've developed greater emotional resilience, deeper empathy, better boundary-setting skills, or increased tolerance for uncertainty. Notice how these capabilities might enhance other areas of your life beyond just coping with the original challenge. Practice applying struggle-derived wisdom to everyday decisions and interactions. If challenging experiences have clarified your values, use this clarity to guide choices about work, relationships, and priorities. If difficulties have increased your empathy, bring this enhanced understanding to your interactions with others who are struggling. Share your experience and insights appropriately with others who might benefit from understanding your journey. This doesn't mean becoming someone who only talks about their struggles, but rather offering your hard-won wisdom when it might genuinely help others navigate similar challenges. Use the strength and capabilities you've developed through difficult experiences to take on new challenges or opportunities that previously felt overwhelming. Pain often reveals inner resources you didn't know you possessed. Testing these capabilities in new contexts helps integrate them fully into your identity and approach to life. Notice how working through painful experiences has changed your perspective on other people's struggles. You often develop greater patience, understanding, and practical wisdom about the recovery and growth process. Allow this enhanced perspective to inform how you support others rather than keeping it separate from your relationships. The integration process transforms pain from something that happened to you into capabilities and wisdom that enhance your ongoing life. Instead of carrying painful experiences as wounds or stories about what went wrong, you carry them as sources of strength, insight, and contribution that continue to serve your development and your capacity to help others. Daily application. As you develop skill with these methods, something remarkable begins to happen. Using pain as fuel for progress stops feeling like a special technique for crisis management and starts becoming a natural way of approaching life's inevitable challenges with curiosity, resilience, and growth orientation. Everyday resilience. Working skillfully with pain naturally develops your capacity to handle daily stresses, disappointments, and difficulties with greater ease and effectiveness. You no longer need everything to go smoothly in order to maintain your sense of well-being and forward momentum. Instead, you develop confidence in your ability to extract value from whatever challenges arise. This everyday resilience shows up as increased emotional stability during difficult periods, faster recovery from setbacks, and greater capacity to maintain perspective during overwhelming situations. You're not avoiding challenges or trying to eliminate all discomfort from your life. You're developing the skills to work with difficulties constructively regardless of their source or intensity. You begin approaching minor frustrations, interpersonal conflicts, and routine disappointments as opportunities to practice the same skills you've developed for working with major challenges. This practice helps refine your ability to extract learning and growth from experiences that previously would have just been annoying or discouraging. Your relationship to uncertainty and change also transforms as you develop confidence in your capacity to handle whatever emerges. Instead of needing to control outcomes or avoid potential difficulties, you trust your ability to work constructively with whatever circumstances arise. This resilience becomes particularly valuable during complex life transitions, relationship challenges, or career difficulties that don't have clear solutions. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by ambiguity or frustrated by problems you can't immediately solve, you maintain curiosity about what growth might be possible through navigating these challenges skillfully. People often notice that you seem calmer and more centered during difficult periods, not because you don't experience stress, but because you've learned to work with stress as information and energy rather than as evidence that something has gone wrong. Enhanced empathy. As you develop skill with transforming your own pain into growth and contribution, your capacity to support others through their struggles naturally expands. You become someone who can remain present with others' difficulties without trying to fix them immediately or becoming overwhelmed by their emotional intensity. This enhanced empathy emerges because you've learned through personal experience that struggling people don't usually need advice or solutions as much as they need understanding, patience, and confidence that growth is possible through difficulty. Your presence becomes supportive rather than overwhelming because you're not trying to rescue others from experiences that might serve their development. You develop the ability to hold space for others' pain without taking it on as your own or feeling responsible for eliminating their discomfort. This capacity becomes incredibly valuable in relationships, parenting, and any work that involves supporting people through challenging periods. Your own experience with extracting value from difficult experiences also allows you to offer hope and practical wisdom without minimizing others' current pain or rushing them toward premature acceptance or positivity. You understand that meaningful growth often takes time and that supporting the process is more helpful than trying to accelerate the outcome. This enhanced empathy often leads to opportunities for formal or informal mentoring, counseling, or support work that draws on your hard-won understanding of the growth process. Your pain-derived wisdom becomes a resource that benefits others while continuing to deepen your own understanding and integration.
Meaningful contribution. Perhaps the most fulfilling aspect of learning to use pain as fuel is discovering how your struggles can contribute to something larger than personal healing or growth. The wisdom, empathy, and capabilities that develop through working with challenges constructively often want to express themselves in service to others or meaningful causes. This contribution frequently emerges organically rather than through forced effort. As you develop skill with extracting value from difficult experiences, you naturally become someone who can help others navigate similar challenges. Your perspective and capabilities want to be shared in ways that benefit the larger community of people dealing with struggle and growth. This contribution frequently emerges organically rather than through forced effort. As you develop skill with extracting value from difficult experiences, you naturally become someone who can help others navigate similar challenges. Your perspective and capabilities want to be shared in ways that benefit the larger community of people dealing with struggle and growth. The service that emerges from transformed pain often feels more authentic and sustainable than contribution that comes from obligation or external expectations. You're offering resources that you've developed through direct experience rather than theoretical knowledge or should-based helping. Your contribution might manifest through formal work like counseling, coaching, or advocacy, or through informal support like being the person others turn to during difficult times. The key is that your help feels grounded and genuine because it emerges from personal understanding rather than academic knowledge or well-meaning advice. This meaningful contribution often provides a sense of purpose and fulfillment that makes your own struggles feel worthwhile. Not because the pain was inherently good, but because learning to work with it skillfully created capabilities and resources that can genuinely benefit others facing similar challenges. Continuous development. As using pain as fuel becomes natural, you discover that this approach supports ongoing development throughout your life rather than just helping you recover from specific challenges. Every difficulty becomes a potential source of learning, strength, and contribution rather than just an obstacle to overcome. This continuous development mindset transforms your relationship to aging, loss, and other inevitable life changes from sources of dread into opportunities for continued growth and deepening wisdom. You develop confidence that you can work constructively with whatever life presents rather than needing everything to remain comfortable and predictable. Your capacity to extract value from challenges also tends to improve with practice. You become more skilled at recognizing growth opportunities, channeling emotional energy constructively, and integrating insights into your ongoing life. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel like familiar territory that you can navigate with increasing skill and confidence. This ongoing development often accelerates rather than slows down as you age because you've learned to work with life's natural challenges rather than spending energy trying to avoid or overcome them. Your accumulated experience becomes a resource that enhances your capacity to handle new difficulties with wisdom and effectiveness. The continuous development that emerges from working skillfully with pain often feels more authentic and sustainable than growth that comes from purely positive experiences. You've learned that you can create meaning, strength, and contribution from whatever circumstances arise, rather than needing perfect conditions to continue developing.
Natural teaching. As your skill with transforming pain into progress becomes integrated, you naturally become a teacher and model for others who are struggling with their own challenges. This teaching happens through your example and presence rather than through formal instruction or advice giving. People notice how you handle difficulties, and they're often curious about how you maintain perspective, extract learning, and continue moving forward during challenging periods. Your approach becomes a resource for others, not because you tell them what to do, but because your way of being demonstrates what's possible. This natural teaching role often feels fulfilling because it allows your own struggles and growth to serve a larger purpose. The difficulties you've worked through become preparation for helping others navigate similar challenges rather than just personal experiences you've had to endure. Your teaching tends to feel authentic and grounded because it emerges from direct experience rather than theoretical knowledge. You're sharing approaches that you've actually tested and refined through your own struggles rather than offering advice based on what you think should work. The most profound aspect of this natural teaching is that it continues to deepen your own understanding and integration. Supporting others through their growth process often reveals new insights about your own journey and helps you continue refining your ability to work constructively with life's inevitable challenges. Living transformation. The ultimate goal of using pain as fuel isn't eliminating suffering from your life or becoming someone who enjoys difficulty. It's developing the capacity to work with whatever arises in ways that serve your growth, contribute to others' well-being, and create meaning from even the most challenging circumstances. This living transformation shows up as a fundamental shift in how you relate to life's inevitable ups and downs. Instead of measuring your success by how much comfort and ease you can maintain, you measure it by how skillfully you can work with whatever circumstances arise to support ongoing development and meaningful contribution. You discover that this approach often leads to greater overall satisfaction and resilience than trying to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Working constructively with challenges tends to create deeper fulfillment than avoiding difficulties and pursuing only comfortable experiences. Most importantly, you realize that learning to use pain as fuel for progress isn't just a personal development technique. It's a way of honoring the full spectrum of human experience and extracting wisdom and strength from the challenges that every life inevitably contains. When you can work skillfully with pain, you become someone who can create meaning, growth, and contribution from whatever life presents. This capacity becomes a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone whose life you touch through your example of how to transform struggle into strength, wisdom, and service to others. This is how pain becomes fuel for progress, not through enjoying suffering or seeking out difficulty, but through developing the skills to extract value, meaning, and growth from the challenges that naturally arise in every human life. When you learn to work with pain this way, your most difficult experiences become sources of your greatest strength, deepest wisdom, and most meaningful contributions to the world.